Hey guys, what's going on and welcome to the Jack Nerd channel. Today's video will be focused on giving you some help if you can't really decide which role to go with when you start playing Final Fantasy XIV, or if you just got to the end game, you've been experiencing with different roles and jobs and you are trying to decide which role to really main in Final Fantasy XIV. This video will be focused on telling you guys all of the pros and cons of each role, but of course this is gonna be more like an opinion video because you might see these roles a bit different, but I just wanted to give you guys a bit of help to help you decide which role to go with in terms of complexity, enjoyment, fun, difficulty and all sorts of things. So without any further ado, let's jump straight into it guys and let's see all of the pros and cons of each single role. Alright guys, so let's start with tanking. As I said before, this is gonna be more like an opinion video, so don't take everything absolutely seriously. This is my opinion and my help to help you guys decide which role to really go with. So first of all, in terms of tanking, one thing that's definitely good and one thing that I've been always looking for is that it's easier to find groups with, because if you don't have that much time to play, if you don't have like 15 hours a day like these streamers, but you still want to experience a lot in the game, then you don't want to sit in queues, you don't want to sit in queues in the Dungeon Finder or in Party Finder either. So if you are going with tanking or healing, then you are going to have a much easier time finding groups. Also, the next thing is that you are the one that's going to be setting the pace for dungeons. So if you want to make sure that your dungeons are running fast, then definitely it's a good decision to go with tanking, because you are going to be the one in every single dungeon who is setting the pace. The whole team is going to be following you and it's up to you how fast the dungeon is going to finish. Well, as long as nobody fails, because it's up to you how fast you are pulling and how much you are pulling. So this can be a good thing if you like this responsibility and you like to be a leader, but of course it can be something bad as well if you are a bit stressed about this, or if you want to go slower and people keep harassing you. So you always need to consider this, but in general it's great that you are going to be always the leader of the group and you are going to be the one setting the pace in dungeons. The next thing is that in every single fight, in dungeons, in raids, in trials, you will always have a bit more room for failure. And this might sound a bit strange, but it just comes from the fact that tanks will have the highest armor and health pool, and there are certain mechanics that you might survive that others might not. Or there might be some avoidable damage that you could avoid, but you do fail to avoid this and you get hit by it, and you might be able to take like 2 hits and still survive, whereas a healer would get that same thing and they would die. So there's just, in general, there's more room for failure. Of course, this doesn't count if you are on the ultimate level, because if you fail then you will just die. But on extreme level, especially in dungeons and even on Savage in some places, you can fail a lot more and still stay alive. So this will make it a tiny bit easier or more relaxed, but of course you still really need to pay attention during every single fight. Alright, but the next thing is that this would mean that you are having a bit easier time. But I have to mention that if you are tanking, then you will always need to watch some guides, unless you want to get a lot of harassment from your teammates, because you will need to know what to expect in every single fight, unless it's a new expansion and everybody is still learning the fight. You will need to know, because you are the one positioning the boss. Most of the people are going to follow you. Like if you are going to a position with the boss, then people might know that that's not the good position to be, but they will still follow you because they still need to keep on DPSing, the healers need to be in range and all sorts of things. So just from the fact that you need to know always the positioning, you will always need to learn the fight. So even though you have a bit more room for failure, you are the one who really cannot go into a fight without knowing what's going to happen, because you are simply the leader of the team and you need to know what's going on. So this is a very, very important part. And also, just about positioning, that's gonna be one of your biggest challenge as a tank. Because let's say me, I was looking for a very challenging role in the beginning when I started playing Final Fantasy XIV, and I thought that tanking might be, because previously too in MMORPGs tanking was always a quite challenging role for me. I always felt like that might be the most challenging and biggest responsibility, and it still stands here, but in the same time the gameplay itself as a tank is not gonna be that complicated. And now I mean your rotation. Like in Final Fantasy XIV, there's so many skills that every single character has. It kind of reminds me of classic WoW. And as a tank, you are going to be having one of the easiest rotations in the game, in my opinion. If you play a Gunbreaker, it's gonna be a bit more complex, like a DPS rotation, but in general, it's gonna be very simple and straightforward. It's more about knowing when you need to use your cooldowns, when you need to mitigate a tank buster. But to be honest, after running a fight 1 or 2 times, you simply just know these times. It's very apparent. It's like it's not that hard. Like, so your rotation and timing your skills is gonna be very simple, and it's a bit boring for me, to be honest. It's not that boring, but it's a little bit more boring in my opinion than healing and DPSing. So what's going to make it exciting for you is just knowing that you are the one who's leading the team, you are the one who needs to take care of positioning, you are the one who needs to pre-plan for every single mechanic to know how to position the boss in order to make sure that your teammates will be able to avoid these things as well. So you always need to keep this in mind, and you always need to look out for your teammates. So this will make it very challenging and much more exciting for you to play, not the actual rotation. So if you are looking for that kind of difficulty, then tanking might not be for you. So I just really wanted to mention this. And one more thing that was very important for me, for example, and that still kind of like pulls me back to tanking, but I'm more like a healer now. But anyways, so the thing is that tanks look, my god, they just look badass in this game. The tank armor, if you are looking for a badass armor, you know, like big spikes and swords and like just like that, like very brutal look, then you want to go with tanking. There's no other class, in my opinion, in the game that even comes close to the badassness of the armor sets. The other classes, especially healers and casters, is like more just like classy, and I don't know, it's to be honest, it's not really my style. But the tank armor sets, oh my god, it's like one of the best things I've ever seen in an MMORPG. It's just amazing, guys, amazing. Yeah, so that's definitely an upside. Just one, well, it can be a pro or a con as well. Like, it depends on how stressful of a gameplay you want. Like, some people like to be really challenged, but like, of course, you have a bit more room for failure as a tank, as I said, in terms of getting damaged. But if you fail, then that's a big failure. Like, if you really fail, then possibly usually it's a failure that like makes your whole group die. So the responsibility that you have is always going to be much higher. But in this game, I can tell you guys that people are really patient, in my opinion and in my experience. So you don't need to really worry about it. Just make sure that if you are a tank, then you always make sure that you prepare for the fights. You don't just go in and you are like, yeah, well, I'm gonna see what's happening. You can do that on like normal while you are questing and doing dungeons and stuff. But when you are going for proper trials, then you always need to learn the fight. Just watch your guide online and just make sure that you know how to position and how to handle the certain mechanics. As I said before, tanking is going to be more for people who want to be leaders, who want to lead the pack, who want to know that they are the ones in front, they are tanking the damage, they are taking it, they look the most badass during doing it. And also for people who want more the complexity to come from the responsibility and the positioning rather than the actual gameplay of like rotation and stuff. Alright guys, next up I want to talk about healing pros and cons. So first of all, as I said before with tanking too, it's much easier to find groups as a healer. Actually, in this game, it's the easiest to find a group as a healer. As I see, most of the groups are usually just waiting for a healer in the end. And especially if you are running dungeons, I found that as a healer, I always have instant queues. I always have instant queues. It's kind of weird that like as a tank, sometimes you are having fast queues, but sometimes even a DPS is having a faster queue than you. So, but I can definitely tell that as a healer, you are pretty much always you are just getting instant kills. So that's definitely an upside. Next up is that I find, like, as again, I just want to say that this is an opinion video more like, so for me, I find healing to be the most exciting role in the game. And let me explain this to you guys. So basically why I find this is because healing is extremely unpredictable. So Final Fantasy XIV is a quite predictable game in terms of like every fight is scripted, so you kind of know what's going to happen. So maybe as a tank or as a DPS, it can get a bit boring to replay these fights all over again, because most of the times it's like very similar. It's gonna be very similar. You are dealing with the same things, and that's it. You are just dealing with the stuff that you need to deal. Of course, there are certain variety, don't get me wrong, it's not the exact same all the time, but it's gonna be very similar. As a healer, avoiding these mechanics and dealing with them is gonna be similar, but for you the difficulty is gonna be very dependent on how good your team is actually. So sometimes you might run a fight that's completely super easy, everybody is dealing with everything, you are fine. You know when are the parts when there is like big group damage and stuff like that, and you just deal with it, you get prepared for it, you time your cities, so on. But when your group is failing, so many people are messing up things, you can still correct, because in this game you can always revive people during the fight. So it's not like in World of Warcraft that you have just like a combat rest, you can revive people during the fight, and also just with healing. So when people are failing, you can still save them, you can still revive them. Of course, this has a very high mana cost and like a very long cast time, so it's very hard to kind of like correct other people's mistakes, but you can do it. And this gives that kind of like excitement and complexity for every single fight. Like every fight is gonna be different, because it will always depend for you on like how good the people are. Of course, if everybody is always doing everything right every single time, then it's gonna be the same for you as well. But this doesn't really happen, let's be honest. People tend to fail quite a lot, and when they do, then you always need to correct, and this will make every fight like, I think this is the most exciting, because it's just like you never know what's gonna happen, you never know how much you need to correct. And also, as I said with tanking, that you have more room for failure. As a healer, you have the least room for failure. Like you have possibly the smallest health pool and the lowest armor, and if you fail something, then most of the times you just simply die. And the thing is, there is no one who can revive you, because if you die as a DPS or even as a tank it's much worse, but as a DPS, if you die, then you are like, okay, if my healer has a swift cast and they can revive me instantly, then I'm just back. You know, they are losing some mana, it's not ideal if you are in a static group, like they will not like if you fail, but most of the times they can just release you or revive you, and that's it, the fight goes on. But as a healer, if both healers die, that's it, the fight is done. The fight is done, unless there is a red mage who can still revive one of them. The fight is pretty much done, because you are always going to have like some massive damage that's going to damage the whole group, and eventually it's just going to kill you. There's no one to heal, there's no one to revive others, so then that's it. So I definitely think that healing is the most exciting, because it's very unpredictable. Next up, about the rotation. I think healer rotation can be much more exciting than tanking rotation, but of course this depends on your job as well. As a white mage, I find it a bit more boring, but I'm maining an astrologian right now, and I find it very complex, and like there's so many things that you need to focus on, while also focusing on the mechanics and trying to focus on like what other people do and correcting their mistakes, and like it's just very complex. The damage rotation itself is, for all healers, is like 1 or 2 buttons, and that's why it's very boring to play during the MSQ and questing, because you literally just like press the same button all over again. So that's very boring, but you are going to heal a lot. Like if your group is doing great, then of course, as I said, healing can be a bit boring too, but otherwise you always like kind of need to react, and like you are trying to find time for DPSing while also keeping your group up and dealing with the mechanics. So it's a very complex job, and I find it to be the most exciting and the hardest in the game right now. Also, just as a tank, your role is absolutely vital, and if you succeed in a fight, then in a big part it's going to be your success. And don't get me wrong, DPS is extremely important as well. But you have to be honest, like when a fight succeeds, then it's like there's always a bit more pride given to the tanks and healers, so it's just a bit more rewarding knowing that you played a bit bigger or more important or harder role in beating that fight. So in general, I think that healing is for somebody who likes a challenge, who likes the game to be unpredictable, who always wants a bit more excitement and not to know what's exactly going to happen during a fight, who likes to support others, and also for someone who likes to kind of do a bit of DPSing but a bit of support as well. I think it has the most variety, because you are kind of like buffing people, you are also healing people, you are also DPSing a bit, so I think it's just the most versatile role and the most exciting role in general. So yeah, I definitely think that if you want that excitement and that complexity, then you should go with healing. Alright guys, and last but not least for sure, I want to talk about the pros and cons of playing a DPS. But this is going to be the shortest one, because this is the most straightforward thing, and you all know how it is to play a DPS. Nearly everybody starts as DPS when you start playing an MMORPG. Most of the people, at least who I know, they all start as DPS. I started as DPS, and it always seems like the most fun, and like there's the most classes available as DPS, and it seems like the most simple and straightforward role, and it is. But to talk about the pros and cons in terms of queuing, because I talked about this in every single other role as well. Queuing, actually I heard that it's very long in this game, but I didn't find it like that. Maybe because there's so many people trying out tanking and healing now, I'm not sure why, but I got very fast queues even as a DPS, and finding groups in the party finder seemed to be quite easy as well. So definitely I can say that right now at this point you are not going to have any issues with queuing. So if this is something that you worry about, that you will have like long wait times, right now it's not the case. I'm not sure when you are watching this video, but right now when I'm making this video, it's definitely not the case. I'm having very fast queue times and I can find groups very easily. Alright, so who is DPS for? Like how is playing a DPS class or job in Final Fantasy XIV? I find that the rotation, so if you are looking for complexity in terms of your rotation, then definitely this is the one to go. Like if you are looking for this min-maxing, like trying to like really get to like very high level in terms of your rotation and get the most out of your class, and you love this min-maxing and like finding all these like little things, and then this is going to be for you, because the rotation is definitely the absolute most complex in this case. Let's say when I'm playing a samurai, that's my DPS job that I'm maining if I play as DPS, then there's like a free button rotation, and then inside that there is another free button rotation, and then when you do that, then there's another skill that you can use, and then if you use the skill in a certain amount of times, then there's another skill that you can use, but while you are using these, then you are generating this power with which you can use this skill, and then some of the skills are off GCD and some of the skills are on GCD, and you are like trying to make sure that you... So what I mean is that it can be very complex and very exciting, and the difficulty of DPSing in this game comes not just from the fact that you are of course trying to maximize your DPS throughput and you are trying to make sure that you are avoiding things while still being able to DPS, but like kind of like this rotation is complex on its own. And I find that quite satisfying when you really smash your rotation, but like focusing on your rotation and really smashing it while also focusing on a mechanic happening every 5 seconds that you need to deal with, while also keeping in mind where you are in your rotation and smashing that while avoiding the mechanics, and also staying in a position with the boss where you can still reach the boss in terms of your ranged abilities, or if you are melee, to stay close to the boss while avoiding the mechanics, making everything right and keeping on track of your... So I can definitely say that if you are looking for a challenge, then a DPS class is gonna be challenging too. It's not like in World of Warcraft, don't get me wrong, the rotation can be a bit more complex there as well, but so many of the rotations are like very simple. You can really focus on the fight, but here you really need to master your rotation so well, because there's so many other things that you need to focus on while also smashing that rotation, and that's kind of the difficulty of it, like really maximizing your DPS output and smashing your rotation while also paying attention to all the other mechanics. The thing is that one of the downsides, which can be an upside for you as well, like this is like very hard to say if it's a pro or a con actually, that like it's the least responsibility as a DPS, because if you die, then most of the times your healer can just like revive you, unless like 5 of you die in the same time. Actually, that's not even 5 DPS in a group unless you are in a raid. Anyways, but if more of you die, then that might not be possible and it might lead to a wipe. But there's not that big of a DPS checks until the Savage and Ultimate level. So the main thing is that you avoid the mechanics and you are just trying to do as much DPS as possible. But even if you make a mistake, most of the times it can be corrected by your healer. So that's definitely a thing. So if you don't want that type of pressure, you want rather the pressure of like, am I able to really maximize my output? And this is the big thing here, like, or at least in my opinion, that if you are a big competitor, then DPSing is for you. DPS jobs in every single MMO anyways is, in my opinion, are for people who don't want that pressure, or for the people who are super competitive. Because for me, DPSing was always a race. And there are DPS meters in this game too. If you want them, then just go online, you can find them. Anyways, the game doesn't really allow this, but you can still get it, and nobody is going to ban you for it unless you are calling out people and so on. But this is a topic for another video. The thing is though that it's very exciting. It gives so much excitement to the fight that you are like trying to maximize your rotation while avoiding everything and trying to be the top DPS. And here the great thing is that with any job you can be the top DPS because the game is extremely well balanced. Yeah, so that's pretty much it, guys. That's all the things that I wanted to speak about the DPS job. And as I said, the DPS job is gonna be for the person who is very competitive, or for somebody who doesn't want that much responsibility, but the complexity, you are definitely you are going to have it. Alright guys, so this turned out to be a very long video, much longer than I wanted, but I wanted to share all of these things with you guys. But anyways, I only have like 40 seconds left on my card, so I can't really make at least this outro very long, and I can only record it one time, so I'm right now just praying that I'm not gonna stutter too much. But anyways guys, thank you very much for watching this video, and please smash that like button if you liked this video, and please leave me a comment about what you would want to see in the future, how you like this, what you liked, what you hated, and all these kind of things. But in general, I'm just so thankful for each and every one of you who come here and watch this video. I just like to give to people, I just want to build this community. And anyways guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you found something useful here. I hope it will help you find your role, and I will see you guys in the next one. 2, 1.